Hello, my name is Cher Grieving, and this is my Module 3 for EDL 853 Special Education Interviews. The three people that I interviewed are Dave, my principal, Jean, the other special education teacher in the building, and Denise, my paraeducator. I am a special education teacher, so I interviewed the lady who is in charge of pre-K through 6th grade special education. Denise, my para, and I have been together for 10 years. She was a para when I took the job, so we have worked closely together for 10 years. She's a great gal. She's very, very knowledgeable in special education, and I consider her worth a great deal in the resource room. The first question, what are the public awareness tools that we use for early identification measures in our school? My principal talked about the ages and stages assessment for preschool kids. We also have a SIT, Student Improvement Team program, in which there is a team of teachers that develops a plan for a student who might be struggling, an at-risk student, and we try to handle these struggles early before staffing into special education, if at all possible. And we also have Title Services, a teacher who is in charge of our MTSS reading and math programs, grades K through 6, and she helps, helps those at-risk kids that have not been staffed into special education. My special education teacher talked about the yearly 2 to 5-year-old preschool screens and the outside agency of KidLink that we have, in which she can consult with any referrals that might be ages birth to 2 years. Outside of the school, KidLink does a nice job of early identification at those ages before they enter preschool. I might mention we do have preschool in our school district, ages 3 and 4 preschool. My paraprofessional talked about the computerized assessments of AIMSweb and STAR, in which we measure reading and math scores, and we can pick out those kids with needs starting at the age of kindergarten. And she also mentioned the preschool screens. Number 2, what do you find to be the most challenging part of your job when you're dealing with special education? My principal talked about the idea that some people think that special education is a program to help students with their homework, give them all the answers, make sure they pass the class. That's the stigmatism that special education can have, and that's the stigma that students with special education help gets from other students and parents as well. He also sees it as maybe a discrimination or a judgment on students if we pull them for special ed. He doesn't see this, but that's the challenging part that he tries to combat with other parents and community people that are asking about those kids. He also says that sometimes people see it as a failure on the parents' part, and that is also a challenge that we have to help not only community people understand. It has nothing to do with the parents, and also help the parents understand that it's okay. It's not because of you. It's not because you struggled in school. We try to do the best to help make sure those stigmatisms are not fully placed on our special ed kids. My special ed teacher talked about motivating students who struggle. If a student has a learning disorder, they are going to struggle even coming to school, let alone doing the work. And so it's our job to help motivate that kid. And another challenge might be working with regular ed teachers to make sure that the accommodations and modifications as listed on a student's IEP are being carried out in the general ed classroom. My paraprofessional talked about getting difficult students to do their work and then trying to help the student to not look different from the others. And I appreciate this statement, and she really does work hard to help that special ed kid she's working with to intervene with his or her peers, work within the small groups that are offered in the classroom, helping them not to look different. She certainly does not separate them from the group or hover over them. It can be challenging at times. And also another challenge would be that she tends to get attached to her kids that she's working with, and she understands she cannot do that. Number 3, what is the most rewarding part of our job? My principal states that when a student is exited from the program, most certainly when we provide the strategies early enough to help that kid, that is certainly a success and very rewarding. And when we finally see a student get it or the light bulb comes on, my teacher talked about watching kids have success and then working one-on-one with a child and getting to know them as a whole, not just what their difficulties may be or what their needs are, but getting to know them about everything about them, from what they did before school and after school and what they're looking forward to on the weekend. And that's kind of building that relationship, forming that relationship and trust that's needed to work with these kids. My paraprofessional talked about watching a student finally understand what they've been struggling with, forming relationships, and gaining a student's trust. What advice do you have on supervision of special education staff, including the paras or maybe the speech pathologist? My principal talks about treating them as professionals. Do not supervise, support, but do not micromanage, and trust that they will do their jobs. Even if we provide their support, we just have to back off and just let them do their jobs and trust. My special ed teacher talked about communicating openly and daily with them and then providing the sufficient training that they need. And my para talked about providing support for them, communicating with them, providing training, and then reinforcement that they are doing their jobs. Don't we all need that? Just positive reinforcement, just like we would do with our students. We need to tell that our staff members that they're doing a good job. How do you work effectively with parents of special needs children? My principal stated that he tries to carefully review IEPs so that if he receives a phone call or has questions of a general ed teacher, he's somewhat familiar with that file. And if he pulls that file out to try to answer their questions, he understands what it is. It's not like it's the first time he's seen that file. He wants to communicate with the parents closely, and he wants to offer trainings to the parents. Trainings would include training on the certain strategies that we're using at school that maybe they can use at home. My teacher talked about, again, communications, again, sharing strategies, and then just emphasizing their role. I guess you can either be an administrator, a teacher, a parent, or a student, but you can't be more than one of those. So the parents need to know what their role is at home to provide support for their student. And again, my para talked about communication. Excuse me. She understands that she does not communicate with parents directly, but she will communicate with me, and then I will communicate with the parents. How do you work with the regular ed teachers when dealing with special needs children? My principal feels like we're doing a great job of working closely with special ed and general ed. He feels like there is close communication between us, and he also knows that a special ed teacher should not rely on a para to give instructions to a general ed teacher, but instead talk to the general ed teacher first and then make sure that the para and the general ed teacher are both on the same side. Sometimes when the para does the communicating with the general ed teacher, things are not always stated correctly. My special ed teacher realizes, again, daily, weekly communication is important. Share strategies so that we are on the same page. And my para says, keep it on an educational need-to-know basis. This is a very professional statement by her. She understands that she does not need to know any more than what she needs to know in the education aspect for that child. And she also understands the importance of confidentiality. And number 8, what advice do you have for first-year administrators? And my principal states confidentiality. Do not respond with an answer until you've collected all your facts. Listen to both sides of the story before assuming something and talking out of line. Document, document, document. Yes, for sure. The special education teacher talked about a first-year administrator needing to just watch and listen. Do not add demands. When a first-year administrator comes in, sometimes I think they want to save the world or change the world, and so they add some jobs or tasks or responsibilities that are their idea. And it's kind of like that old saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And we've had this happen a little bit. It creates stress on everybody, but do not add demands that maybe are not necessary at the time. For that first year administrator, build trust. Do not have favorites. Do not just call in certain teachers to your office and talk to them all the time, but build trust with your staff as a whole. Get to know each of their personalities and support even when it's heated. If the parent comes in with a complaint and is upset, first year administrators have to have those broad shoulders and support until they know the full story. They should support their staff first. And again, my para talked about support. Do not assume, and be fair and consistent. How do you describe the role of the special ed teacher and the building principal? My principal states we have to be on the same page. He looks to SPED teachers as experts in the field, which I appreciate. He tries to build trust, and he knows that communication is vital. My special ed teacher talks about, again, relationships are vital, communication is vital, and they need to support each other. They need to offer advice. And my paraprofessional talked about support and communication. So you can see there's a lot of support references and references to communication on all of these slides, which seem to be two key roles of all involved with special education. Finally, what characteristics do you seek in an inspiring administrator in regards to special education? My principal, of course, this really does not pertain to him, but he said I would think that a special education teacher would seek a supportive administrator who will listen, offer advice, and not throw a teacher under the bus when discussions get heated. I appreciate that very much. My special education teacher would like for that aspiring administrator to listen, be honest, have integrity, be reactive, be proactive, not reactive. Try to anticipate and see things before they happen, and do not just shuffle SPED off to the side. That's your classroom. Those are your students. Let them fully participate and be active with the school as a whole. My paraprofessional talked about an inspiring administrator having broad shoulders to take the complaints, and then someone who views special ed students as just another student in the school, not one of our students, meaning not one of the students that belong in the resource room. Again, I had fun with this assignment. Thank you.